Welcome to the Corrective Consciousness, episode 152, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. I am your host, vysethebold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And this is...
Lion?
I didn't know we had Lion with us. He didn't tell me before that he was going to be in the show.
Just kidding, guys. This is a joke. You might say it's a Lion segment.
This week I really wanted to do a bit of a tribute here to the Nintendo 3DS, and the reason being is I believe the last, possibly the last commercial physical game may have just been released for it. And that being Persona Q2, the new cinema labyrinth. So it's kind of fitting that this game in particular will be the final physical release for the system, and I very much doubt anything of note will digitally come out for the system either. I think Nintendo has pretty much abandoned the idea of it. For a while there, they kind of were like, oh, maybe somebody's little brother still has this, or little sister still has this, while their big sibling is playing the Switch. So they were releasing mainly, enhanced ports of certain games. Like you had Yoshi's Woolly World got an enhanced port on there. You also had an enhanced port of a couple other games as well. I'm trying to think of them off the top of my head.
Where the 3DS got the enhanced port?
Correct.
There's Xenoblade Chronicles, and there's Hyrule Warriors.
Yeah, but there were some recent ones, in particular. Those had come out a couple years ago.
Okay.
At this point, Xenoblade came out like 4 years ago. At this point.
Oh sure. It was a port of a freaking Wii game.
I'm talking mainly games like I think Kirby's you had Luigi's Mansion.
Yes, and you know what? Mario and Luigi Bowser Inside Story.
So there were two enhanced ports of the Mario and Luigi games. It was the first one and also the third one.
Yeah, the first one was what, GBA?
Correct,
and the third one was DS.
The third one was a DS game. It's a shame that Partners in Time was not released as well. They didn't work on that one. But apparently these ports really didn't do very well, and who can blame them, really? I mean, the system is dead at this point. I mean, the Switch has been out for what, 2 solid years at this point, 2.5 years.
Right, yeah.
2.5 years at this point. So, who can blame people for kind of moving on from it? Even the people that are the biggest supporters of these kinds of things. People like us are still, of course, going to buy the things that we really like, especially now because we know these things will be scarce. There was what's that detective series that I
Jake Hunter.
There was a Jake Hunter release only a little while ago, physically, for the 3DS, and I was excited to see that. And they just put a new game on the Switch not too long ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. So they've really been releasing games for that series lately. But I don't think that got a physical release at all. So it's pretty cool that that the system has lasted this long, but I think this is the final nail in the coffin. Now, this, of course, is an original game, Persona Q2. It's not a port or anything like that. It's very much a DS style game, meaning without the dual screens, this series would definitely be something different. Maybe not suffer, but it would be reworked in some way,
Sure.
for sure. Because the Persona Q series is a spin-off of the Etrian Odyssey series by Atlas. It is Etrian Odyssey mixed with Persona 5 in this case. The previous one was characters from 3 and 4. So they have cute little chibi versions of characters from 5 in it, which is pretty neat. I'm looking at the box right now. I was lucky enough to get one of the limited editions. It also comes with a stuffed dog or stuffed wolf, which is pretty neat. And this is highly stylized. I'm excited to play this quite a bit. Yeah, it's Koromaru, if anybody knows who that character is. I like the idea of the Shin Megami Tensei games, but I am woefully behind in them. So I buy them when they come out, and I do not play them. It takes me a while to get to them.
Yeah,
Still
like
playing
I only
Persona 3.
have I have Persona 3 Portable, like the digital title.
Hmm.
4 golden physical, 5 physical, and Dancing All Night physical, but I haven't touched any of them because they're like 1,000 hours long, and I don't know how interested I am in actually playing them.
Do you have Dancing All Night for the PS4 or for the Vita?
It's the original version, so the Vita.
Okay. Yeah, the Dancing All Night for the PS4 is a good one to get physically.
Yeah, that's like a Moonlight Sunlight thing for the
S-
PS4.
So what's the original Dancing All Night game was based off of the songs and characters from Persona 4.
Yes.
And what they did with this one was they released two games at once.
Yes.
And it was for characters of Persona 3 and music for Persona 3. That was one of the games. The other game was Persona 5.
Yeah.
If you got it physically when it originally released, it also included a port of the ones from 4.
That's pretty cool.
So you could play it all on one system. So that's pretty neat for PS4. So anyway, like I said, it's probably a fitting end to the system to end on an Etrian Odyssey, legacy game, and also a Shin Megami Tensei game because both series have been instrumental on the 3DS. And the original DS as well. So you have Shin Megami Tensei 4 and its sequel
Yeah,
are
Apocalypse.
on 3DS.
Not to mention Persona Q, the first one.
Persona Q, and the Etrian Odyssey, 3 through 5 are also on the 3DS, along with the remakes of 1 and 2. No, 3 is still a regular DS game. 4 is where it made the transition, I think.
Oh, and wasn't there also an Etrian Odyssey style game like Shiren the Wanderer?
Yeah, and that there are actually two of those. There are
Okay.
two mystery Shin Megami or Etrian Odyssey mystery dungeon games. Only one of them came out in the U.S.
Okay.
But they are officially mystery dungeon games, just like Shiren the Wanderer is, as well, and as well as the Pokemon games are official mystery dungeon games. The Mystery Dungeon series are that style of game made by the original makers of Dragon Quest. I forget their name for the moment. Yeah, but they are the original makers of that type of game. Was it Shiren the Wanderer? Actually has a few titles for these type of systems as well. Let me see here. The Mystery Dungeon games are made by Spike Chunsoft, yes. So, yeah, I forgot about that. So Spike Chunsoft is pretty big time now. They even have their own publishing arm, which is pretty cool. But yeah, Chunsoft was the original maker of the first few Dragon Quest games. So this is really cool that the 3DS has been around for so long. let's see here. How did you end up getting yours? What was your story behind you picking up the 3DS? Let's go into
Well,
that.
this is kind of funny because I never bothered with the handheld systems because I couldn't possibly play them on the TV or record off of them. I mean, the Super Game Boy and the Game Boy Player are different stories, so I got a Game
Sure.
Boy Player. But the 3DS was obviously off limits. I mean, I'd been toying with the idea of getting a 3DS so I could get that Japanese, like, Katsukity mod, but, like, the cost of a 3DS plus the mod was like $500, and I really didn't want to do that.
I
But
don't
if
blame you there.
it's like that'd be so cool, but I later learned that, and I honestly I think this is only a temporary thing, but you can mod a 3DS XL for nothing, and it's a bit jankier than a physical mod would be, but with the mod with the software mod you can basically hook up the 3DS like a wire like to your computer's line jack and do like basically stream your footage to your own computer, so you might be able to record off of that. So I was like, oh, that sounds cool. So I went to pick up a 3DS XL, and this is like way late into the system's life. So I built up a bunch of points at GameStop because I never spend my points. So I got like I think it was like a $50 gift certificate or something. So I like got a new 3DS XL for, I mean, the name of the system is new 3DS XL. I got an old refurbished new 3DS XL for like $75.
Do you remember the story behind mine? How I got mine? You were there when it
Your
kind of happened.
3DS?
Yeah.
I'm afraid not.
Okay. So, the first 3DS that I got, I don't have it anymore because I have since replaced it with a new 3DS.
Mm-hmm.
But the the story behind it was really interesting. So, when the 3DS originally came out, it actually didn't have a whole lot going for it.
Yeah, it
Um,
had Steel Diver.
it had Steel Diver, and then also that Fatal Frame spin-off,
Oh,
Spirit Book,
Spirit Camera,
Spirit Camera.
which nobody cared about because Fatal Frame's relatively niche anyway, and even then, nobody knew what Spirit Camera was. They were like, oh, is that like Fatal Frame, but by a different company? Because otherwise they would have called it Fatal Frame. Like, so nobody gave a shit.
You
I
could
got
play
my copy of that game for I think $5.
you could play a shitty version of Street Fighter 4. Like
Oh wow,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean it wasn't a very good system in the very beginning, much like the original DS was kind of like that too. There wasn't a whole lot to play for it other than Feel the Magic and Mr. Driller. But when by the time that so really when the system really started catching on was when Mario Kart came out for it, Mario
Well,
Kart 7.
well, like no shit. Like, how are you gonna release this brand new system with innovative technology and not have any game anybody knows or cares about like twice in
Yeah.
a row? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But audience, don't you care about a generic ass fucking submarine game? Like, no, we don't. Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't very good with it. They only it only really started taking off when Mario Kart 7 came out, and that was right around the time I was thinking about buying a system.
Mm-hmm.
And this was in I think 2012, early 2012, maybe. And yeah, because the release date was March 27th, 2011 for the original version of the system. So um, what had happened was I was at Magfest. This was January of 2012, I think, and um, there was a contest going on at a booth.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Now you remember it?
I think this sounds familiar.
So there were some people that were running a contest for their podcast, and unfortunately, the name of the podcast escapes me. But they had found this random ass, really difficult Flash game called Treadmosaurus Rex, and they wanted people to play it, and whoever could score the most would get a 3DS for free, along with a copy of Mario Kart 7. And there were a few people that were playing it, but the front runner at the time was Egoraptor from the Game Grumps. And I started playing and I ended up beating him. And I ended up winning, and I got my 3DS that way.
Nice.
So yeah, that was the time I met
earned my 3DS.
I beat Egoraptor at a no-name flash game called Tremosaurus Rex. So it's actually a lot of fun if you go back and play it.
Nice.
But it was a lot of fun. But anyway, I got mine, and then it is a great system. The major flaws with it, there are two major flaws, and I think will remain this way, unfortunately. The first major flaw is no TV out, which we've already kind of hinted at.
Yeah.
And that's really a big shame. I think that's probably the biggest shame. The other was that for the longest time until the new version of the system came out, it did not have a second analog nub.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, actually. Like, didn't copies of Kid Icarus Uprising come with, like, an analog attachment?
No. So, Kid Icarus actually came with, like, a palette, like an artist palette.
Okay.
To kind of set up your system so you wouldn't have to hold it
Okay.
and get wrist strain while you were playing it. So, yeah, that was what was behind that. Now, as a result, there are a few games that do utilize the second nub, but very few. And a lot of the games that came out for the system could have used it. And it's really a big shame. But I do want to give the system a lot of credit for having some of the first portable versions of first portable version of the Virtual Console. It had some really good re-releases of Game Gear and Game Boy games that wouldn't really happen otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
It also had some really great online-only titles that I really love, and I wanted to have a little way of showcasing it. So Eureka made a few what they call 3D classics, 3D versions of NES games that were outside of the Virtual Console. And among the best of them is the original Kid Icarus is highly improved. With that version, they actually modified like the way that it controlled and looked, and made it better in every sense. They also made a really good version of Kirby's Adventure that I really enjoy. I also like the games that came out for it that were part of the Phoenix Wright series. You had Dual Destinies, which was the first game after Apollo Justice, which had both Apollo Justice and Phoenix Wright in it. So that's a really great title. I really love the Ace Attorney games, and I was very happy that they kind of combined both of the main characters' stories. And the other one is The Spirit of Justice, which is the newest game in the series as of right now. Now, there were some other really cool titles for the system that I wanted to go over as well. Before the Sega Ages collection had been thought of for the Switch, there were the Genesis or the Sega Classics series that M2 put out, which have been really, really great. The 3D classics. They have that version of Fantasy Zone 2 that I talked about on Tuesday's podcast. They put out a 3D version of that. They put out a really crazy version of Streets of Rage where you punch a guy and he automatically dies and flies off the screen. Like you can obviously like turn off that function, but they made like 3D versions of a lot of really good Genesis games over the years, and probably my favorite out of the bunch was that they made a 3D version of Gunstar Heroes. But what they did was they added a feature where you can you don't have to collect the weapon power-ups. You can choose at any given time what what weapon power-ups you want to use. Kind
Nice.
of like having all of the weapons at your disposal just for when you want to use them for the best situation, which is always how the game should have been, if you ask me. Gunstar Heroes is my favorite game of all time, but there are two major flaws. That the fact that you don't have an inventory of those weapons, like I said, and the other fact is that you can't switch between free and fixed shot, meaning you can't stop yourself and aim in multiple directions and then switch to a mode where you're also running and aiming in multiple directions at the same time.
Okay.
Later games in the Contra series and the Gunstar Heroes series added that function. And especially it's highly used in Shattered Soldier in particular. Contra Shattered Soldier is impossible without that function. So it's cool that they went back and added it to it. So it made it the perfect version of the game. The only problem is you can't play it on a TV.
Yep.
And Gunstar Heroes is very much a co-op game. If you ask me, it plays best as a co-op game. And it's harder to play a co-op game with two 3DSs. It just is. So I hope that they bring that to the Sega Ages collection one of these days. I just really love the handheld systems in a lot of ways. I have a strong love for them. I mean, but in some ways, a lot of the games that come out for them are marooned on them until somebody makes a port, and that's like the unfortunate end of them. In some ways, you could say it protects their uniqueness, but it just kind of stinks that a lot of these games won't see the light of day past the 3DS, unfortunately, and can't be streamed as easily or shown off as easily by somebody such as yourself, Lotus.
Yeah, it is pretty frustrating. I mean, who knows? Maybe someone will eventually make some sort of. Well, I don't know. I mean, like, there have been a couple of DS games that have made it to the Wii U Virtual Console. So, like, obviously, you lose your two-screen functionality, but changes can be made. So, who knows? Maybe that'll happen for the Ace Attorney games. I don't know.
Well, like, the Ace Attorney games isn't much of an issue, if you ask me. Those games can conceivably be, ported to a new system without much trouble because it doesn't lose much from not having the two-screen interface.
No, of course. I just hope that it actually happens.
Yeah, I mean, there are other games like Contra 4, for instance, that it needs both screens.
Yeah.
The gameplay is spread across the two screens, and even if it's spaced incorrectly, it would feel weird and incorrect. And the Etrigan Odyssey games, I don't even know how that series is going to continue on. Like with Persona Q2, they may need to reinvent that series entirely, because that entire series works around having the dual screen system.
Yeah.
And not only that, but also the ability to make notes on the bottom screen.
Well,
in particular.
maybe they can make it work with the Switch. Like, you know how with some games on the Wii U, you would have the gamepad be your second screen.
Sure.
Like, where you look at the notes or whatever, but the TV screen's where the real stuff is at. Maybe you could do that with the Switch. Like, you wouldn't be able to play it portably, but it could happen, conceivably.
I don't know, because if it's not in the dock, it doesn't display on the TV. You know what I mean?
Oh, no, I did not know that. I was thinking, because, like, I don't have a Switch. So I thought it was like the Wii U where you have, like, two screens at once.
No, the dock is essentially the way that it plugs into the TV.
Okay. Well, then I just don't know.
Yeah, it could lengthwise work, I guess, because you can have the two screens side by side.
Okay.
I mean, one of the hallmarks of the series, for anybody that doesn't know, is that it's like a very old school dungeon crawler game, except that you have your map on the screen, on the bottom screen, while you're doing it, so you don't get lost. Number one. Number two, it's actually fun to create the map below. It's not automatically created for you on the bottom map. You actually create it yourself.
Well,
You actually map it out.
It'd be clunkier, but maybe you just go to a map screen. And just do what you're gonna do.
Yeah. I guess
you could work it. It'll just be a little less
intuitive.
Not even intuitive. Just there's a
convenient.
word for this. A little less. Well, certainly less convenient. Let's just go with that. It'll be less like. I guess maybe simultaneous.
Okay. Yeah, so that's actually what you're losing there with that series. Also the fact that you'll have to put in the notes of like where the walls are manually with the controller configuration rather than being able to just draw them.
Yeah, that's definitely clunkier.
So I hope that series doesn't stop because I absolutely love it. It's some of the most fun I ever had was the first Etrian Odyssey game. It also has a really great sound. All the games have great soundtracks by the wonderful Yuzo Koshiro, who I can't shut up about. But he really did a great job with the music with those games, and the art and everything about them is so much fun. And that's why I kind of wanted to say that this game is fitting. You know, Persona Q being the like one of the last releases is very fitting because it's just a series that's ingrained from the very beginning on the DS to right now with this series of systems. So it's kind of cool that it ended up like this. But it's kind of sad as well because nobody knows how they're gonna rectify it. Maybe they'll have an Etrian Odyssey series that will continue on, but will have different kind of mechanics. It'll be like it'll go off in a different direction, maybe. So that would be pretty cool, I think.
The different mechanic is gonna be you get a piece of paper and you draw the map. It'll be like we're in the 90s all over again.
Yeah, just like the original Phantasy Star or, The Eye of the Beholder or any of those old games.
Oh, yeah, and I was just going to say any old dungeon crawler. Like, even Grimrock, the new game, has an option for you to not have the auto map if you want to draw your own.
No, that's just nutty. Even Stonekeep had an auto map.
Yeah. Grimrock is like, do you want to go real old school? Because you can if you'd like. And I'm like, nope.
See, my problem always was that I would start my map in a quadrant of the graphing paper where I would run out of like space to write.
Well, that's the part that sucks. Yeah, like you start in a corner or something, and then whoops, you're going into a hallway that wraps all the way around. And you're like, oh no.
Yeah. I can no longer draw these walls because I ran out of like space on the paper to do so.
Yeah, that's when you need multiple sheets of graph paper and you draw onto the next sheet, like some people did for the original Zelda. They just had a bunch of papers. It was like the actual NES developers, like the same way they did it. They just drew all this shit.
And then your mom walks in. What the hell are you doing?
I'm playing NES, Mom. Go away.
You're 33. Get out.
Get out of my room, Mom. You get out.
This is my room. You said it was mine.
Didn't you see the keep out sign with like the biohazard symbol on it? Or like stay away or else? Didn't you see that sign?
Yeah, I gave those both to you on your birthday last week.
You asked me, you begged me to buy them, so I did. Oh.
Begged me to buy them.
But Jesus Mom, how else am I going to tell you to keep out? No one else is here but me. Yeah, I know.
You were the only person I was trying to keep out. Do you want any dinner? Yes. Please, just leave it outside. Just leave it outside the door.
Slide it under the door.
Do you want me to wash your sheets? Yeah, you can come in.
Yeah, sorry. I would very much appreciate that. My laundry too.
Frosty chocolate milkshakes.
If this were a real war, we'd all be dead meat by now. Oh, you're shivering. Are you cold or what?
Never mind.
What does matter? Never mind. What is mind? Doesn't matter. That's the whole joke.
I just love Troy McClure, like,
Yeah.
they look, they are drawn fucking crudely.
Yeah,
Oh
in the
my
original
god.
shorts.
Oh my god. They look like Bart is almost as gigantic as everybody else, like as his parents.
I just
Like he's
love
just
that
huge.
Homer's delivery is nothing like it is today. Who wants frosty chocolate milkshakes? It's not even, you don't even recognize him. Like, if you just heard the audio only, quick, what show is this from? Like, you don't know.
Ooh, jeez, needs Conan O'Brien badly. But anyway, yeah, I also want to give the system praise for the ports of Dragon Quest games as well. So the original DS was home of remakes of Dragon Quest 4 through was it 6? Plus Dragon Quest 9 was an
Yeah, they
original
released
game.
9, I think exclusively on the 3DS, wasn't it?
That's on the original DS.
Oh, maybe I'm
And
thinking 10. Wasn't there was or 10 or 11? There was something that was exclusively on the 3DS, right?
hold up. So they remade 7 and 8 for the 3DS.
Yes, they did that.
That was what
I forgot
happened.
about 7 was PS1, right? And 8 was PS2.
Correct. So apparently the 3DS version of 7 is a much improved version.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, they overhauled 7. 8, I don't remember if it had extra content or whatever, but I think like the
it
core
does.
game was still similar.
It's very similar. The only drawback is that for the American release of 8, they on the PS2 they had a symphonic version of the soundtrack,
Yes.
and on the 3DS version they stuck to the original MIDI version of the soundtrack.
That's a little bizarre. 'Cause the funny thing is, 8's the only Dragon Quest game I've seen. So I just thought that's how it was. I was like, oh, cool music. So if I heard it on the 3DS, I'd be like, what happened?
Well, that there's a history of them doing that. When 11 came out, only a little while ago, it released with only a MIDI soundtrack. And the Switch is going to have the symphonic version.
Bizarre.
Yeah, everybody points to the composer probably bleeding everybody dry. Um,
Oh.
the composer is a well-known piece of shit. He's he's the kind of he's well known for denying Japan's involvement in like the Rape of Nanking, stuff like that. Um,
Weird.
yeah, no, he's a grade A piece of crap, and
There's a
nobody.
subject I didn't think was going to come up about
Oh
Dragon Quest
yeah, yeah,
11.
yeah. So for that's a very disturbing topic, but
Yeah, I was going to say
essentially,
Google it if you really want to know, but you
it,
don't.
it's essentially like our version of a Holocaust denier.
Yeah.
Yeah, like no, this is a proven fact. Like Chinese people were massacred and worse
Yeah.
during that particular time. So during World War II, and this guy denies it all. But yeah, nobody will miss him when he dies. So
Yeah.
but yeah, he is also apparently pretty lazy, but they won't hire somebody new because of cultural standards.
Yeah.
He according to them, he helped make Dragon Quest a hit since the very beginning
Yeah.
on the Famicom. So why do away with him now? That kind of thing. But apparently he's very difficult. He doesn't like it when like when you play like a Dragon Quest game on a stream, you may get a copyright flag not for the game but for the music.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And it's because of him. So yeah, it's crummy, but other than that, it's a very the that version of 8 is very good. So you have Dragon Quests 4 through 9 playable on the 3DS if you really want to play them all. It's just really neat. So that's a good place, a good home for them. I've also really loved the the Mario and Luigi games as well. I kind of fell off with them. I did not play any of them post Bowser's Inside Story. I have them, but I haven't played them. So was it Dream Team? I played a little bit of, and then there was the one that was the crossover with Paper Mario. Yeah, just overall, there's been a million things to love on this system. I mean, probably the most definitive version of Corpse Party is on it.
The original.
Yep, the original Corpse Party. And I think that's pretty much all I want to wrap up with. Any other titles that you want to spotlight for our fans here?
Honestly, not really, because I've only ever played one game on the 3DS for a little while because I don't have much occasion to play the 3DS. So, like, I can't really talk about my personal experience. Just there's a bunch of cool games on it, and I own several, but I haven't gotten around to playing any of them because I know I can't really Let's Play them, so I'm kind of holding out for possibilities.
What was that game? Don't leave them hanging.
Oh, fair enough. Like, probably the least highly acclaimed Zelda game there is, Triforce Heroes.
Oh, okay, and it was with
the
me
one
and
where you
Old
can
Man
play with
Stompy.
one player or with 3 players. Not up to just one player or 3 players.
That was with me and Old Man Stompy. We actually had a short amount of time where we were playing that.
Yeah, we enjoyed ourselves on the 2 occasions we did that.
Yeah, I would like to get back into that. We just kind of fell off with it, unfortunately. But I enjoyed it. I don't know whether you did, but
no, it's fun while it lasts. But it's just a very grindy. Like it doesn't feel like a Zelda game in regard to how much you need to grind levels over and over again to unlock costume pieces. It's just like the actual levels feel like Zelda, but that aspect of it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Triforce Heroes was trying to be an evolution of the
Four Swords
Four Swords games, but the Four Swords games did it better. If you ask me.
The Four Swords games you could play with 2 players, or 3 players,
or 4, yeah, or 1 for that matter. It was they were much easier to play in that regard. In fact, playing it with 2 people actually worked pretty damn well. Playing those games. It's a shame that they screwed it up so badly with the method in which you need to play Triforce Heroes.
Yeah, I guess the logic is which one of you is going to control the little doppelganger guy, but like who cares? Pick one.
Yeah, exactly. Why not just I don't know, with even Crystal Chronicles came up with a solution to that. You know what I mean? Like way back.
No, I don't actually. I think I only played that game once, and it was 4 players.
Oh, okay.
So that wasn't an issue.
So if you played that game 1 player, the big problem is you have to think to yourself, well, who holds the chalice?
Okay.
If that's the case, because that game, the way that it kept everybody on the same screen is that you had to have this chalice that if only gave you a certain amount of space to play within. The chalice holder was a computer controlled Moogle, essentially.
Okay.
It made more sense that way.
There you go.
But in the multiplayer versions, like somebody had to hold the chalice, which also is a bad decision.
Yeah, because then that person's not really playing. It's just like, move up, I need to do something else.
What you should do is you should just have a party leader, and that's it. They're the ones who control the aura around them or whatever, and then everybody else has to follow.
Yeah, the party leader is the chalice. Yeah,
that's it. That's what they should just do.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, like a lot of older games did that, where they would just damage the player who's still behind if the first player goes ahead. Which honestly, it does feel kind of dickish, but
it's the only way to do it.
Yeah, the second player is still at least playing the damn game and not holding the chalice for the first player.
Well, I believe the original Contra, only player 1 really controls the screen and the scrolling levels.
Well, exactly. So for the vertical levels, you could easily kill off player 2 just by advancing. But
sure.
But at the same time, like I just said, player 2 is not just opening the door for player 1 all the time. Here, let me stand over here so you can be the one who actually plays the game.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I really love a different Zelda game, which I think you should definitely play on that system. And not too many people talk about it anymore.
What, Link Between Worlds?
Link Between Worlds is
Yeah, I'm
phenomenal.
excited about that one because Link to the Past is my favorite Zelda game, and this is literally Link to the Past 2. Like, that's incredible.
When that game came out, I literally couldn't stop playing it. Like, it was difficult to stop playing it because it was so damn addictive. So I definitely recommend going back and playing that. It was one of the best games for the system.
Yeah,
one of the best games
it.
of all time, really. I also love the remake of Majora's Mask as well.
Okay. Those I'm not going to bother with because I have them on a system that I can play on a TV.
Well, they made a fair amount of improvements. It's
no,
worth
I mean,
playing.
they did, but on a tiny screen on a system that can't broadcast to TV, so I don't care. Like, all the 3DS games I have are because that's my only option.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
I mean, I understand that the N64 games are not gorgeous 3D, like, better colors. I don't care. I already own them, and I can play them on a TV. It's fine.
Sure. All right. Well, why don't we move on to our weeklies here then?
Why? Sure.
With no further ado.
So Bushido RX, this is in regard to, I think, our Pratchett and Game In discussion.
Sure.
He said, surprised none of you mentioned Stardust. I know it's a little more straightforward than most of his works, but I'm also a fan of the token fantasy lifestyle. The token fantasy style.
I actually never read that one. I think that's one of the
it.
Game In titles. I never read that one, unfortunately.
Yeah. Dracologist says, I do know there was a scene in Hogfather which was very philosophical. And going back to, we had mentioned the Doom code, IDSPISPOPD. He said it stands for id, like the ID, because all the Doom codes start with id. ID, DQD, it's id, DQD. So IDSPISPOPD is id smashing pumpkins into small piles of putrid debris. That is true, I forgot about that, and I don't know what the hell that's supposed to mean. He explains it. The term came when the devs in id were worried that Doom might cause an overhype, and one of the members said something about using the phrase as a fake title for the game while it's in development. Oh, like Blue Harvest? Like the Blazkowicz family goes as BJ, and his great-great-great-grandson William Billy Blaze Blazkowicz. And if it's really true, then Doom Marine. And as for the most satisfying enemies to kill, he was like Arachnotron. Good choice. Honestly, I could line up the whole Diablo Hellfire and 2 enemy deaths like the Demon Knights that when killed burst into a pillar of fire and their armor whirled around it before collapsing into a pile of scrap. That's pretty freaking sweet. Or Turok 2 with its gratuitous gib animations. Yeah, Turok 2 got fucking awful. Well, like, I think I mentioned this before, but when the cerebral boar comes out, some enemies just immediately run away. They're just like, no. Like, that weapon's fucked up even by the game's own standards.
Yeah.
General Ledger says, Pratchett's Lady Luck reminds me of the comic Dubious Company, which had Fred, Phred, Fred, the probability god. The writer probably was inspired by Pratchett's Luck. Fred takes random forms in every appearance and has casinos for temples. Nice. He bends outcomes, but not reality, for his amusement. Despite being a lesser god, the other gods fear him for this. Yeah, that sounds about right. The main characters included his high priestess and paladin. The priestess had extreme luck, both good and bad, to the point where she dreaded things going her way. The paladin was always second best, so when he was repairing the ship engine and the team engineer left the room, things went south quickly. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
As for favorite bosses to kill, getting Delita to end Algus with Holy in Final Fantasy Tactics. In a similar vein, Destroy Man from No More Heroes. It felt good to take down those pieces of human waste. I'll take your word on Algus, but yeah, Destroy Man was such a douche. It felt good to bring him down. Like, he was such a dick that it kind of came around full circle and became likable.
It was great.
Gilgamesh in Final Fantasy V was so comically over the top that I look forward to every fight. Yup. While the opposite in terms of emotional satisfaction for the actual kill, in terms of gameplay accomplishment, Joy from Metal Gear Solid 3.
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
that was definitely an interesting set of emotions. She's so fast and well hidden that it's difficult to shoot her. Easy for her to close in and wreck you and see it CQC. Yeah, and she'll dismantle your fucking gun, by the way, even in gameplay.
Oh, yeah.
The time limit also pushes up the tension. When I first fought her, I didn't realize my TV was breaking down, giving the screen a white filter, making it tougher than it should have been.
Yeah.
And everything's already white in that fight.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah, there you go. Those are some interesting inputs. Now, as for the question, which actually also comes from General Ledger. What are your favorite parodies?
Okay, I can easily answer this. There are two favorites of mine. First being, this is a typical choice. Uh, air Airplane. Um,
Yeah, well, one thing I didn't realize about Airplane at first is that it's not a parody of disaster movies. It is a very close parody of a particular disaster movie, like Zero Hour or
Airport.
something. What?
Airport.
Airport? It's not Zero Hour?
Nope. Airport.
Well, in any case, it's like there are some parts that are like line for line. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, and even some of the actors carry over.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And this is another favorite from when I was growing up. These both came out. Hot Shots and Hot
Yeah,
Shots
Hot Shots
Part Two.
Part 2.
Yeah, I love both of them. You don't really hear people talk about either of those movies nowadays.
Not really.
And for a while there, though, like when I was going through high school and college, people talked about Hot Shots Part Two even more than the original.
Yeah, I
Um,
barely heard about the original. I didn't hear about Part 2 much, but clearly more than the original.
Yeah, yeah. Both of them are great, really funny. The first one is a parody of Top Gun, very obviously, and the second one is a parody of Rambo, and the First Blood movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. I love those a lot. I also love the Naked Gun movies too, which
I
are
don't know if
great.
I've seen the Naked Gun movies.
Oh, they're great. They're great.
Now, for me, I mean, this is some low-hanging fruit, but several of Mel Brooks's works,
Oh yeah.
especially Young Frankenstein, which is a
I forgot
parody
that
of...
was even a parody, but it absolutely is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a parody of the original Frankenstein, but also...
Frankenstein.
Excuse me. But also... I forgot which movie, but one of the later Frankenstein movies, because there wasn't an Igor in the first one.
I think it's the third one.
Maybe the third one?
Yeah.
And also, probably, like, the one I liked
Was
watching
it Son of
most...
Frankenstein?
It might have been.
Yeah.
Probably also the one I loved watching most as a kid was Spaceballs, which is a parody of Star Wars.
And Star
Um,
Trek.
Star Trek?
There's some Star Trek stuff in there.
Is
Sure.
there? Oh, well,
Vulcan neck
there's
pinch?
the beaming, the Vulcan neck pinch. All right, and they have a little bit of an alien fun in there as well.
Oh sure.
Speaking
Even
of
the
which,
beginning
for-
of the movie is like, with the ship going by slowly is an alien reference.
No, it's a freaking Star Wars reference. It's the opening scene of Star Wars.
It's making no. Watch Alien another time. It's very clearly a parody of how long it takes that first. I think it's a combination.
I was gonna say I still interpret it as the opening scene of A New Hope, where the Star Destroyer is way bigger than anyone thought it could be. So this is way bigger to the point where it's like stupid. It has
Yeah,
a
but
fucking bumper sticker on it. If you can read this, you don't need glasses.
in the original Alien, it takes forever. Like what feels like forever for
No, that's fair,
the
but,
barge
like,
to go by.
That's fair, but it'd be weird for the opening scene of a Star Wars parody to be an Alien parody. Like, they have an Alien nod at the very end with the original Alien cast, which was hilarious. And by the way, I was going to mention
Jonathan Hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, and Young Frankenstein also has a little, like, just a tiny bit of Bride of Frankenstein at the end, just a little bit. Also, Austin Powers was the first one,
yeah.
in particular, was a love letter to various old James Bond movies, like I want to say Doctor No, definitely Diamonds Are Forever.
Moonraker in there too.
Yes, Moonraker. Diamonds Are Forever, not because of Random Task, because he's Oddjob from GoldenEye, but the final scene with Random Task was a Diamonds Are Forever nod, where, like, the waiter comes into your building, but oh wait, he
It's
was
also
the secondary assassin you forgot about.
It's also an Avengers parody as well. The UK Avengers,
Yeah, the
not
UK, the stuffy movie that Americans didn't know what it was, so they didn't watch it.
well, that was a remake of
Like a TV show?
a TV show, yeah, and it was a
Yeah.
terrible movie.
That's what I've heard, yeah.
They cut out so much of the movie when they cut it down to size that it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, I heard there were actual, like, context clips missing from it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Austin Powers definitely was a take on a bunch of various old movies, and obviously Dr. Evil is Blofeld, even though he wasn't doing any of the things Blofeld did in the old Bond movies, except for the ending scene where the base is self-destructing.
He's more of a an impression of Lorne Michaels than anything.
And by the way, the when the base self-destructs and Austin Powers escapes, I still have the VHS tape that had alternate endings.
Oh yeah,
where he got out of the base with Vanessa like on a life raft. Uh, I'm sorry, I forgot what movie that was from, but that was another
that's Doctor No as well.
James Bond movie ending. Was that Doctor No?
I'm pretty sure.
Where he escapes on a life raft. Yeah, so it's like, hey, there it is. So little stuff like that just really tickled me, even though I don't think I'd seen any of those movies when I was a kid. Like, and now that I've seen a bunch of the old Bond movies, I was like, oh my god, Austin Powers was making fun of that specifically. Like, I love little, like, retroactive realizations like that. Oh yeah, I was also going to mention regarding the Mel Brooks movies, it's not my top Mel Brooks movie, but I still quite like Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Oh yeah.
Obviously making fun of Robin Hood.
Prince of Thieves.
Yeah, Prince of Thieves with that was Kevin Costner, right?
Correct.
Yeah, unlike other Robin
Carrie
Hoods.
Elwes is a much better choice as a Robin Hood anyway. In any context.
They call that out directly, even though he never actually. Unlike other Robin Hoods, I can speak with an English accent.
It's not even just that.
I didn't get that joke at all, by the way, when I first heard it. I was like, so? And you're not even doing it.
He just looks like a better... He just looks more like Robin Hood would look like. Yeah.
Also, by the way, super old casting with Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
Before I knew who Dave Chappelle was.
It was probably his first movie that I can remember him being in, other than maybe Nutty Professor. That was another one that he was in.
Dave Chappelle?
Early.
Oh, that's right! He was the asshole comedian. I completely forgot that was him.
Yeah, there's ones where... There's another one where he's really young in it.
Well, Half-Baked?
No, that's later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jon Stewart shows up. Have you ever tried it? On weed? And you're like, Jon Stewart, is that you? It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, Jon Stewart's not known for his movie career.
Well, that's one thing I loved about him on The Daily Show is not often, but every once in a while he'd remind you, like, remember that time I was in the faculty? And you're like, what? Okay.
He was much better in Death to Smoochie.
I haven't seen that
That's
one.
A good movie.
He was a news reporter, so, big stretch on one of the Jay and Silent Bob movies. Maybe it was Strike Back. Sure.
I am the Click Commander.
So fucking dumb. Fire a warning shot up his bulbous ass.
Like fucking Winnie the Pooh.
And Kevin Smith just gets mad and just yells at Jay verbally, and you're like, oh, you finally talked.
Oh man, what a good... they're making a reboot of that.
It's weird, but I could actually buy it.
Well, it's not a reboot. The story is that they're rebooting the movie that they were trying to stop in the first one, and
that's clever.
And that they're trying to stop the reboot.
I still love how that movie just straight up ends with Jay and Silent Bob with like infinite money, just buying all the plane tickets in the world and just flying to like internet trolls' houses and beating them up. Hey, these guys said we were pieces of shit, and they just fly to their fucking house. Are you like Cool Killer 123 online? Yeah, that's me. And just beat the shit out of them. It's amazing.
From the website moviepoopshoot.com.
Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, that's dumb. Oh, by the way, one thing I might also mention is not full on movie parodies, but also just individual. Like, hey, I understand that as a parody reference to something is something like kind of like the guy in No More Heroes 2, like the pizza bot guy is like Batoman, and he's like a stupid version of Batman, or like in God Hand, not the final boss or anything, but like the Devil Hand guy is basically Leon from Resident Evil 4 with like a different haircut and bad guy sunglasses.
Yeah, so there are a few notable... I was actually going to say there are a few notable like parody things in video games. One of them is Dan Hibiki.
That's right.
A parody of Robert Garcia and Ryo from
Ryo's body
Art
and Robert's head.
Yes.
And he sucks at everything he does. Oh, and actually, in X-Men versus... I think it was X-Men versus Street Fighter, his ending... I didn't realize it at first, so I was like, I honestly thought there was lore that was unexplored, even though it's a shot-for-shot parody of fucking Art of Fighting. But you know, at the end of Art of Fighting, when you beat Karate Mask, I forgot what he's called, like
Mr. Karate.
Mr. Karate with a Tengu mask. When you beat him, you're ready to finish him off, and then your sister's like, "No, wait, Rio,
It's our father. Yeah.
That's our." And that's how it ends. It's like, obviously it's his father. Who the fuck else would it be? But like in X-Men versus Street Fighter, that happens in Dan's ending. When he beats Akuma, Sakura runs in and she's like, "Wait, Dan, that's our..." It's like, what the fuck? Like, and I saw that way before I ever played and beat Art of Fighting. So I'm like, that makes no sense! And I didn't realize that was the point, for it to make no sense. It's like Akuma's Dan's and Sakura's father. Like, that's way too stupid.
This is what you get for playing the game on hard mode,
Yeah.
essentially. But yeah, there's a few there in video games that I was going to mention. So one recently came out with an English translation. Kid Dracula is a parody of the Castlevania series.
Oh, sure. And it's the same creators, too, which is all the better. It's not like mean-spirited. It's like, we can make fun of ourselves. It's fine.
Konami was like the masters at that. They made the Parodies series, which is a parody of the
it's literally
Gradius
called
games.
Parody, like Gradius, Parodius. It's a portmanteau.
Yeah. Konami was like the first company to really poke fun at their own legacy, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh, this isn't really a parody, more of a comical reference, but one part of Nier, and this is a sentence you'll never otherwise hear, but a part of Nier made me laugh. Like, that'll never happen again. But there's one dungeon in Nier, and it's like the third dungeon, so you've been playing for hours at this point. Like, it's been a while, where you're, like, trying to help the king of... Or, well, no, he's the king, a very young king of this, like, desert kingdom, but he needs the ceremonial mask for his, like, coronation to really be official. But it's like, crap, I left that in, like, a temple, which is like a full-on video game dungeon, and you're like, oh no. So you go through this whole dungeon and beat this cool boss, and then it shows like a cutscene of the prince walking in after you, and he's like, oh my god, that's it. That's the mask. And completely out of fucking nowhere, and it never happens again, he picks up the mask, and it does the Zelda, like, aha! Where he holds it up to the camera, and the item is just floating over his hand and spinning. And it's like, what? And it's so weird. And, like, that's, like, the only funny part in the entire game. You're like, what the fuck? Like, it completely blindsides you.
That's great.
It was fantastic.
All right. Well, I think we gave a good selection there. We're fans of that type of humor in particular, so I really like that kind of parody stuff. We definitely want to hear everybody else's comments on that as well, because I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that we're forgetting about.
Of course, and like, honestly, how many video games and movies have had Star Wars references, or like every movie ever made for like 3 years after The Matrix came out had like the Trinity rotating camera kick. Like, everybody had to do a parody of that at some point in their lives. The Simpsons did a parody of that.
Sure.
You can't avoid it. There are some things that just kind of... It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Or, like, every TV show ever made has some Star Wars techno-babble scene where the dialogue makes no sense, and it's like, but that's the point. It's the joke.
Yeah. For sure. Well, definitely drop us a line in the comments about that one. That is the show for us for this week. We want to thank our fans who contributed questions via the YouTube and Soundcloud pages there. Please keep us supplied with awesome topics as well when you're there. Please give us thumbs ups, 5 stars, star rankings, likes, and on iTunes. And it helps promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. Jeez, man, I'm tired. You can also catch us on Tuesdays on our sister podcast, Reactive Consciousness, the podcast where we take the in-depth look at this week in our lives. Finally, you can find me as vysethebold on PSN, Xbox Live, Twitter, Switch, and Battle.net.
And you could follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, which, by the time you hear this, Alien Isolation will have finished for patrons. Or finally, get involved in discussions with me and other patrons on Discord, which then consider hitting up my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/Lotus Prince.
All right. Well, we will see everybody on a new episode of Reactive Consciousness on Tuesday. We'll catch you then.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye.